Today I'm gonna talk about the absolute maximum and absolute minimum and local maximum and local minimum from a graph. Okay, from a graph. So let's take a look at the first example. Okay, and for this curve we try to find the absolute maximum. That means we need to find the highest point on this curve. Okay, so as we can see, the curve is always going up. That means we don't have highest point. That means absolute maximum doesn't exist. How about absolute minimum? That means we need to seek the lowest point. Which one is the lowest point? Here, right? This point. That means that is absolute minimum. F0 equals 0, corresponding to the y value. Okay, I wanted to emphasize here the absolute maximum, absolute minimum, local maximum, and the local minimum is always about y value. Okay, y value. Now let's take a look. Local maximum. Okay, for local maximum we would like to truncate a small portion of the curve. Okay, a small portion of the curve. For example, here we truncate a small portion of the curve, and then we can see this point is always above the other point. So that means we have local maximum here at this point, and the value is f2 equals 4. How about the local minimum? We're gonna use the same strategy. We truncate a small portion of the curve, and we find the point here is always below the other points. Okay, so that means we have local minimum here at this point. Okay, so we have f0 equals 0. Again, we can find another one. We truncate a small portion of the curve, and then we find this point is always below the other points on this small portion of the curve. So we have the local minimum at this point. So we have local minimum, and that is f3 equals 4. Okay, 4 is the local minimum. Now let's take a look at the second example. What is the absolute maximum? We try to find the highest point from this curve. We find it is here. However, the highest point for 3 is not defined because here we have an open circle, right? So that means it's not defined or doesn't exist. Now, what is absolute minimum? We try to find the lowest point here. This is the lowest point, -1, -3. However, this lowest point is not defined because we have another open circle. Okay, so that means doesn't exist. Now we try to find the local maximum, local minimum. Okay, let's take a look. So we try to truncate a small portion of the curve. For example, I truncate it here, or truncate it here. Okay, and we find this point is always below the other point on this portion of the curve, right? So it is supposed to be a local minimum. However, this point is undefined because it is open circle. Okay, so we don't have local minimum. It doesn't exist. Now let's take a look. Another one. We truncate a small portion of the curve. Okay, and we find that this point is always above the other point on this small portion of curve. And this point is supposed to be a local maximum. Okay, like local maximum. However, this point is not defined. That means we don't have local maximum, or the local maximum doesn't exist. Okay,